So students and parents, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I wanted to highlight a couple more events that we have coming up in our college mini-series. We kicked off this event with the Senior College Summit back on August 21st. So it was a late start for all grade levels with the exception of seniors. We gave them breakfast. It was a great PowerPoint. They should have left the presentation with a packet that looks like this. Each of the counselors then sent a follow-up email to parents either that day or the next day with a copy of our PowerPoint as well as PDFs of all of these handouts. So check the Naviance account for your student if you need to refer to anything that we might talk about tonight or any of the upcoming events. The one thing I wanted to note that the dates on the flyers we hand out, there may be some changes with dates or location. So just keep an eye on the Monday morning memo, our marquee, and we also always send out through school messenger an email and an auto dialer as a reminder a few days before the event. So coming soon, the next event will be financial aid night in October. And then after that, we also will have a financial aid workshop. These workshops are new in the last couple of years, and I wanted to highlight them because the nice thing about them is you actually get one-on-one attention, and as long as you have your PIN ahead of time, you will be able to sit with somebody and actually they'll walk you through the entire application and you'll click submit before you leave there that evening. So it's a really great opportunity to get one-on-one support with your FAFSA application if that's something that you feel like you would benefit from. And then after that, we also have every Tuesday in November, counselors will be available in the College and Career Center, both at lunch and after school for help with college applications or essays. If they're just stuck on something, if they're uncertain about something with the transcript, the application process can get a little tricky. And if they're not paying attention, there's, sometimes answers that can get them stumped. And so we're there to help if they're essays or their personal insight questions, they're having a hard time with that, just want somebody to proofread or get a little feedback, we're available to help them with that as well. So again, that's going to be every Tuesday in November at lunch and after school. And then in February, we will start kicking off community college applications. There'll be a community college night, a community college week, and some field trips to local community colleges. So keep your eye out for that as well. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage, one other thing. So after we did our senior college summit, the next step of that is counselors are calling seniors in to do individual college appointments because everybody has kind of a different path. So that takes a while because there's a lot of them and just 6 of us. So keep in mind tonight, if you're one of those seniors who haven't seen your counselor yet, we'll definitely get to you, but if you have pressing questions or you're applying early action or comment at, make sure you come and see us sooner rather than later. We don't always know that, so we're kind of getting through our list and being strategic about it, but please reach out and email your counselor or stop by and see us if we haven't seen you and you do have questions and they're time sensitive, okay? And now I'd like to welcome to the stage Miss Allison Lopour from CollegeWise. She'll talk a little bit more about herself as well. So please give her a round of applause and a nice warm welcome.
Hi friends, how are you? That was really disappointing, but it's a Monday, so I'll give you a little time to warm up. I think this is my 4th or 5th year doing college essay night here. I'm curious, do I have any repeat offenders? Is anybody, oh my God, welcome back to front row. I'm so proud of you guys, great job. And did anybody come in and not get a packet on the way in? We ran out of white packets because I've never had this many of you. Okay, if you don't have a white packet, it will be very helpful to sit by a friend who does, because there'll be a couple sections to read. So look around and see if there's a friendly face. Los Al Griffins are all friends with each other. So friend to sit by. So you have a section to read. And then I'm gonna have copies in the counseling office in the next 48 hours or so, so you can grab a copy if you want one for your scrapbook or to frame in your home, whatever you choose. So, as Jody said, my name's Allison Lopour. I work with a company called CollegeWise. And I know which direction the clicker goes. So CollegeWise is a national college counseling company. We help families navigate the college admissions process, everything from building college lists to planning summer activities to working on college applications and the dreaded college essay. And families will work with us anywhere from 9th grade to calling in a panic senior year, and our job is generally to just make you guys feel better about the process, survive the process, hopefully minimize the tears. This is generally a process that can be stressful. I was grounded most of my senior year. and overnighted my applications from the post office that's open until midnight. There was one in San Diego County. My mom is still mad about it. And we don't want you guys to have that experience. And so generally, I would just want folks to feel better about this process because there are great options out there, which I'm going to talk about. A little bit about me. So I am fighting a cold. So I have 17 drinks over here. It'll be okay. So I've been with CollegeWise for 12 years now. In my previous life, I worked in admissions at the University of Redlands. Go Bulldogs, it's the greatest college in the world. And those are the real Bulldogs, so you can tell Yale that. We're the real ones. And I went to college at Redlands. It was a place I fell into that happened to be the perfect place for me, and then a place that I worked in admissions after I graduated because I loved it so much I could not shut up about it. And so I visited high schools and recruited students and read applications and then did a million interviews and college events in the spring. So you guys are seeing college reps come through campus this time of year. They're hanging out in the counseling office. They're coming to do their 30-minute song and dance about campus. That was my life. And Orange County was my territory. So their job is to get to know you guys, know your schools, know what kind of kids you are. When I joined CollegeWise as a college counselor in 2007, the process looked very different. The economy had not yet crashed. We are still feeling the ramifications of that in a lot of ways. And it has affected the admissions process in a big way, but there's still a lot of joy to be found and there are still a lot of options out there for students. The last little logo I have over here is for the Western Association of College Admissions Counseling, which you guys don't actually care about, but I want you to know that's one of the things I'm hyper involved in, and it's one of the associations in addition to the national group that is working to protect students in the process and make sure that you guys are being given fair opportunities by colleges and not being taken advantage of. So we try to be the watchdogs in a way and also make sure that you have opportunities to learn about them. Can I ask you a question before we jump in? Who's feeling awesome about college admissions in general? Wow, a sea of hands fly into the air. Who's feeling like anywhere from mild indigestion, constant nausea, like misery? Yeah, okay. Parents are like, yes, we're feeling that also. The admissions process is stressful. And we live in an area where we talk only about USC and UCLA or more selective options. And you pick a team, right? Your cardinal and gold, or your blue and gold. Do we call it blue for UCLA? No? Yeah? I don't know. You guys don't know. You're honestly not helping me. Thank you. And it feels like nobody gets into college anywhere. Colleges are very hard to get into. Every year, the U.S. News and World Report comes out and says, oh my gosh, Stanford admitted negative 5% of their applicants this year. There was a satirical article that came out saying that exact same thing, and counselors were sharing it. There's panic and stress. But the reality is, it is easier to get into college than it ever has been before. Period. Full stop. Easier than ever. Okay, you guys are like, she's lying, we're out of here. There are almost 3,000 colleges in the country. The vast majority of them are saying yes to more kids than they're saying no to. It is important to remember that as you work through this process, and parents and students, when you guys want to kill each other, when this essay stuff comes up later, there are options for kids who want to go to college. And if you decide that the only options that are palatable are USC and UCLA and Stanford, if you're feeling like just taking the backup option, then this process will be very stressful. But there are hundreds of schools out there who would roll out the red carpet and throw money at you just for being a good kid to come to school here. So please keep your options open and keep your mind open. Your counselors are great resources here to help you have a sense of what's out there because there are fabulous schools all around, like Redlands. This is the only commercial I'm here for. Okay, so I want to jump in and talk about the essay because the essay I think is one of the parts that feels the scariest for families, feels the scariest for students, and part of this is because you've never written anything like this before. Nobody has ever said, tell us about yourself. 500 words, 650 words. You guys write persuasive essays, you write literary analysis, you write, what else? Stuff about Shakespeare, I don't know. But you're not writing about yourself in this way, so this feels very different. And the McEssay, you guys have a quote in your packets, and if you don't have a packet, I hope you're sitting by a friend who does. So this quote was part of a larger essay. I'm going to use that word too many times tonight, written by a guy named Park Muth, who was the assistant director of admission at the University of Virginia. So UVA is like the Berkeley of Virginia. It's very selective. The vast majority of kids who are applying or being admitted are well above a 4.0. They're getting like a cool 15, 20 on the SAT without really trying. It's hyper selective. And he says, 90% of the applications I read contain what I call McEssays. They're technically correct in that they are organized and have the correct sentence structure and spelling, but they're boring, sort of like a Big Mac. So I take a little issue with this because I love McDonald's. Is anybody else willing to admit that they love McDonald's? Thank you, my supporters. They're the greatest fries. They're the greatest in the salted fries category. So I don't go to McDonald's because the food is a revelation. I don't go there because I think the chef is like inspired and he made this really creative cheese choice on the Big Mac. No, I go to McDonald's because it's the same thing. I know exactly what I'm gonna get. I know exactly what the fries will taste like. And if they're not salted right, you know, and you're mad, especially if you drove through because you can't go back and get new fries. But I know what I'm gonna get there. A Big Mac tastes the same here as it does in San Diego, as it does in Salzburg, Austria, as it does in Paris, France. I've tested it both of those places. It's the same. But if what you're doing with your essay is the Big Mac version of an essay, what you're doing is writing an essay that sounds like every other kid. And you're not every other kid. And so we have to get away from this, what every other student is gonna write. Now, I said that the vast majority of kids who are applying to UVA are very competitive students. So how are 90% of these kids who are super high achieving, really smart kids who are crushing it on the SAT or the ACT also writing super boring essays? Writing a great essay doesn't have anything to do with your academic ability. So those of you guys who don't love English, there's hope for you. You still have to write this essay, but it won't be the end of you. I think too that students feel like sometimes you have to have a dramatic story or like something life altering or the life lesson. And I wrote a terrible essay too, so you're not alone. I didn't know. I think students think, you know, I'll have students come to my office and say, well, nothing bad's ever happened to me. I'm like, I'm sorry? It doesn't have to be a dramatic life lesson. It doesn't have to be a terrible story, and you don't have to be Hemingway to write a great essay. So A students, C students, students who are barely gonna survive English, just clawing their way through to the final, all of you guys can write a great essay. One of the things I like to compare this to, have you guys seen a beauty pageant? Okay, or Miss Congeniality. Okay, thank you. I don't know how much longer Miss Congeniality is gonna work, and I don't have a comparison. Beauty pageants are dying, but when you see a beauty pageant, there are all these various categories. There's the ballroom, ball gown portion. There's a swimsuit portion. There's a talent, you know, like baton twirling or yodeling or whatever. And then there's the interview portion. And in the interview portion, they ask the contestants typically a question like, if you win this title, what are you gonna do? What's your mission gonna be? And what do they all say? World peace. How many of you who haven't seen a beauty pageant or Miss Congeniality still knew the answer to that? That is the definition of a cliched answer. This whole crowd of boys is like, I've never seen it and I don't know why I knew the answer to this. That's not a bad answer. I'm team world peace. I'm on board. I think it's a great idea. I want to be very clear. But we also don't learn anything new about that person, about that beauty pageant contestant. It's the same idea that everybody else had. And when you guys sit down to write an essay, a lot of students think, what do they want to hear from me? And what happens then is you write an essay that sounds like everybody else. So everything we're going to talk about tonight is going to be to help you not write that essay. Because we happen to get into college in spite of our boring essays. But I want you guys to write an essay that sounds like you and that represents who you are as a person you feel good about in the application, that is going to impress colleges in the only window that you have to talk directly to them. Fair? Okay. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, you guys have a very important assignment. So in your packet, you have first paragraphs from 3 essays. If I get too close to this, I need you guys to wave an arm, because this is usually covered. And so if I'm gonna die, I need someone to tell me just quickly before it happens. So you've got 3 first paragraphs of an essay from these are actual students. So your challenge before you start reading, all of you guys have already started reading, you don't even know what your homework is. So you are picking a student who's gonna be your exchange student, who's gonna come live with you in your house, bunk beds, whole deal. In all your classes, hanging out with you and your friends, in all the activities that you go to, this person's gonna be around all the time. So I want you to read your 3 paragraphs and decide who you want to choose to be your exchange student. And then we're gonna take a vote publicly. And no comparing your votes, you guys, don't cheat. Okay, are we about ready to vote? You guys feel confident in your choices? Okay. There aren't any right or wrong answers here. I'm smiling too big, I'm sorry. There aren't any right or wrong answers here. Okay, so who is voting for Tony, our first essay? Treasurer of student government, very fiscally responsible, balances his checkbook. Dads tend to love Tony. Where are the dads at? Come on. Okay, so we got a few for Tony. Although, dads, you're letting me down. Who's voting for Lisa? Volunteer, good egg, okay. And who's voting for Daniel, our chocolate chip pancake maker? An overwhelming majority. Who abstained? Because they thought that they might be wrong. Okay, so who voted for Daniel and is willing to tell me why you voted for Daniel? A dad. I'll pick on a dad. He tries to make pancakes. We like pancakes. We're a big fan. Yeah, who else? He seemed more relatable and real. He started off by admitting he's bad about something. Yeah. Conversational, sounds like his voice, doesn't sound like another kid could have written it. You guys are really ripping off my slides that are coming up. This is super awkward. All those things are true. And we've been doing this speech, a version of this speech, for 20 years. CollegeWise turned 20 last month. Not me, obviously. I'm a young spring chicken. But versions of this. And Daniel has never lost. You guys are instinctively making a choice just based on who you like, right? Who sounds fun? Who do I want to hang out with? And weirdly, that's what admissions officers are doing when they read your essay. Essays are not where they figure out if you can do the work in class. It's not where they figure out if you're going to push through in history when it gets really tough. Admissions officers are deciding in that essay whether or not they like you. When I read applications at Redlands, my concern was to not die of tuberculosis. But I was also worried about who's going to come to campus. I love this place. Obviously, I still have not shut up about it. I graduated a long time ago. But I love this place and I want whoever comes here next to love it as much and to make it better. So who are the students who are going to come here and make it more awesome for the next group of kids who comes to Redlands? And I was thinking about who do I want to sit next to in class? Who do I want to be hanging out with in the dorms? On those terrible couches? Sam Merkovich is playing acoustic guitar. He's playing a Dave Matthews song. You guys know when I went to college now. And we're all hanging out. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, finals week. Somebody's going to do a taco run. Who do I want to be there? I'm not worried about if you can do the work. I'm worried about if I like you. So when admissions officers are reading your essays, they're not evaluating, are you the next Hemingway? Is this kid cool? Does she care about stuff? What will she be like when she comes to campus? I want to be able to picture you walking to class from the Plaza Cafe. I want to be able to picture you having lunch in the Commons with friends. I want to be able to picture you cruising around campus having a life. And the more that they can do that, the more relatable, the more real you are, the more you sound like yourself, the more they're able to do that. I think a lot of students get themselves into trouble when they start to sound not like themselves. Put on this like weird, it's like when you're young and you're wearing your dad's suit jacket, sleeves are too long and the thing's like it's a dress, it doesn't fit. Same thing happens with essays. So forget about the evaluation of your writing. Yes, I want it to be grammatically correct. Yes, I want you to have all the right words in the right order. But this is where they decide whether or not they like you. Okay? You ready to jump in and figure out how to actually do this? Okay, so the first tip. Now students, if you have the packets, you should have the packets. Your parents birthed you, they brought you here, so you have to take notes. That's your job tonight. Parents can relax, have a coffee. So the first tip, don't try to impress the admissions officers. Just be honest. So we talked about that, wearing something that doesn't feel like it fits you, something that feels awkward. I think a lot of times in your essay, you're worried about being impressive. Families, students, and parents say this to me all the time. Does this sound good enough for Stanford? Does this sound good enough for UCLA? So that isn't actually a thing. Good enough for UCLA doesn't, there's no good enough. It's just who actually are you? So I want to read you guys this. I'm not going to spend the whole time reading to you, but this moment I am. So imagine somebody walks up to you on the quad at lunch and says this. During my junior year, I was fortunate enough to be able to be given the unique opportunity to perform over 50 hours of volunteer work at the hospital. I sought out the internship because of my interest in becoming a doctor, and I believe the hospital would allow me to broaden my knowledge about medicine. The experience has been extremely rewarding because I feel I'm truly making a difference in the lives of the students that I work with. How do you react to that person? A collective groan washes over the audience. Yeah, like an eye roll. I'm like immediately irritated with you because you sound like you're trying to be fancy. You sound like you're trying to impress me. So one, I don't think that's a good vibe. When your admissions officer sits down to read your essay, I don't think, oh, I'm very important and I did 50 community service hours is the right way to walk in. Because it doesn't feel genuine, it doesn't feel like you. And for some of you guys, community service has been a really important part of what you have done in high school, and that's okay. But what parts were actually important to you? Because I would bet that the part that was important wasn't how many hours you did. It was the kids that you got to hang out with in the hospital. Or was the people that you met during that service work. Or was getting to hang out with your friends and do something that felt like it meant something to somebody else. That's the part I want to hear about. Otherwise, you're leading, when you lead with hours, you are saying, please be impressed by this. Look at the total. Look at the total sum. And it doesn't tell me anything about your actual work there. So instead of worrying about sounding fancy, what's the actual story? What do you want to tell them? We talked about this in the beginning. Instead of worrying, what do they want to hear? What's important to me to share? That's the stuff that's going to resonate and sound out. Nobody thought that chocolate chip pancakes sounded impressive. None of you guys were like, Danielle sounds the most impressive. Obviously, Tony's the most impressive. He's the treasurer. He can balance a budget. But who do you want to hang out with? That's the question we're asking. So don't worry about impressing them. That's what the world peace answers are doing too. What's the thing that everybody will like and everybody will be on board with? Have an opinion. Like, what do you care about? What do you want to talk about? I want to read you guys a couple paragraphs of an essay from a student we worked with kind of a long time ago. Her name's Megan. She graduated in the class of 2009, which I get sounds like 400 eons ago to high schoolers. But I'm giving you the year because there's an important detail that comes up later. So we talked about leading. I think you said leading. Daniel opens with the thing he's not good at, which doesn't seem like a good instinct for your essay. But listen to this. I'm a good loser. It's an art I've perfected. When I was 6, I lost a button up my nose. I put it up there and it never came back. My mother took me to the doctor and he couldn't find anything. To this day, I have no idea where the button went. For all I know, it could still be up there. When I was a sophomore, I ran for sophomore class president. I stood up in front of my classmates, read a speech filled with big words and fancy phrases, and I lost. The same thing happened when I ran for ASP president my junior year. 1 week after that bitter defeat, I reused my campaign posters, smart, and ran for junior class president. I rattled off another inspired speech and lost. I was starting to perfect my art. I'm not going to die tonight, it's okay. I knew I was good, but I never knew just quite how good I had become. I honed my expertise in my first NHS meeting. We had to elect a president, VP, secretary, and treasurer. I lost all 4 elections in a matter of 25 minutes. Who can boast that kind of speed and precision? I had finally mastered my art. So this student came in to meet with one of our counselors and brainstormed an essay. This is a great topic. But she goes home and writes the first draft and shows it to her mom. And her mom is like, have these people who I hired to help you lost their minds? That you're writing an essay that just is like detailing all the ways in which you're a huge loser. Now I agree, I don't think you can write 650 words on why you're a huge loser. So here's where she turns it. I don't feel like I've lost. Ironically, my losses have opened doors of involvement in other areas that might not have been available to me. I'm gonna make it. Does somebody know CPR, just in case? Ironically, I don't feel like I've lost. My losses have opened other doors of involvement in other areas that might not have been available to me. I committed my time away from what would have been ASB meetings to being a lector at my church. Once a month, I stand up in front of a crowded church filled with my peers, elders, and the priest and attempt to proclaim the word of God. Each week, I'm complimented on my public speaking ability. I've never lost my composure. If I'd been elected ASB president, I could not have been elected as a gladiator of our spirit rallies twice. Dressed in my school's colors, I put on skiing goggles while running over and flying under tables in an effort to win spirit points for the class of 2009. The entire school cheered me on, staring in awe as I flew under the last table and hit my head hard enough to make a sound resembling a small sonic boom. I didn't lose anybody's attention, and I certainly didn't lose any spirit points. I'm a good loser, I'll give myself that, but each time I've lost, I've continued to try. I've never lost my spirit, I've never lost my drive, I've never lost an opportunity just because I was afraid to fail. I've tried so many other things and found success in those areas that my losses have actually allowed me to win. So much of my life exists before me, so many obstacles, so many challenges, so much fun, and I want to try it all. What do I have to lose? So this is an essay I like for a number of reasons. One, she admits her flaws, which you guys have been trained not to do, right? Your job has been to operate your life and through high school in a way that we can present your perfect package to colleges, right? Great grades, take all the right classes, do all the right activities, do them for 4 years and never quit, so that we show this perfect portfolio to your colleges. But everyone who works in college admissions went to high school. We all know you are wonderful, flawed disasters who are going to save the world. We know. So to feel like you need to pretend to be flawless seems crazy, because we know you're learning and changing and evolving. I also think what happens with Megan is she's super confident. She's like, yeah, I'm not perfect. Guess what I'm not? Anything in NHS. Not a single thing in NHS. But here are the things I'm great at. I think that it takes a really confident kid to say, I am imperfect and these things are not my jam. But this stuff I can do all day long. Colleges don't want kids who are good at everything. One of my best friends is a director of admission at a very selective liberal arts college, yonder. And her line is, we're looking for a perfectly balanced class of perfectly imbalanced kids. You can't be good at everything. So what are the things you're good at? Be proud of those. Megan does that in here. On the admission side, when I read an essay like this, one, how many essays do you think that I've read from students who won the ASB election? Every kid who won the ASB election wrote an essay about it. Every single one. But how many kids are brave enough to write about when they lost? So the essay is really memorable. It stands out in that way because not a lot of kids are telling the story. Also, if I'm thinking about from the admission side, I want a student who's going to come to college and survive. Megan is not a kid who's going to bail when freshman physics gets hard or transfer the first week that she's homesick. This is a kid who's going to figure it out. So her revealing those flaws actually shows me ways she's going to be more successful when she gets to my school. So I don't mean for all of you to go home and write I'm a big loser essays. But I do think it's important to remember that it is okay for you guys to show that you're imperfect. I think that's a huge amount of confidence that colleges get to see. And it's true. Like, be proud of who you are and what you're great at. Things I'm not great at, math, dancing. I saw that, who was rehearsing in here before? Oh my God, it's so amazing. I was like, I can't even be in here. You guys are 300,000,000% better than me. What are the things you're great at? Be proud of those and don't worry about the rest. I will do my embarrassing dances at the next wedding. You guys will see me. It's fine. She doesn't write about a big victory. She's just writing about what she cares about. And Megan happened to be a really good student. She got into Notre Dame. You guys have heard of it. They play football, I think. And she called us back in 2014. I was like, hey, I don't know if you guys remember me. My name's Megan. I wrote about being a big loser. We're like, we talk about you all the time. And Notre Dame had reached out to her before graduation and asked her to read an updated version of her essay. So the commencement committee and 4 incoming classes of freshmen who have come through since her application came through, that's how memorable a kid being that brave and being that honest and telling that story is. That's how infrequently it happens. That at Notre Dame, full of high-achieving, brainiac kids, they go, wait, do you remember Megan? We should have her come back. That's crazy. And I will tell you, I see an inordinate number of my students' applications come back with feedback about their essay from the colleges. We're so excited to admit you. Congratulations. By the way, we loved your essay. Don't be afraid. Be brave. You guys got this. You've made it this far, right? Senior year. Is anybody not a senior in here? Yes, proud of you guys. Good job. Okay, so tip number 1 we got. Tip number 2. Do you guys remember Choose Your Own Adventure books, or have you seen them on eBay? Or have you heard of them from your parents? Parents are like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So the second tip is own your story. Choose Your Own Adventure books allowed you to, at the end of the page, choose what your next step was, and you decided how the story was going to play out. This is a little bit of that same thing. So when I talk about own your story, this means you've got to tell the story in your admissions essay that nobody else can tell. Which seems crazy because everything that you guys have done, other people have been doing. How many girls were dancing on the stage when I came in tonight? 700, right? 1 million. So many. everything was, there were so many of them, you guys. Now that, like, the program that you're dancing with is probably been a really memorable experience for you. It's been a big deal. Also, if you're gonna write about that, 300 other girls can write the exact same story. Those of you guys who have been playing soccer forever, there's 20 people on the team wearing the same uniform, on the same bus, going to the same game. So how do you own your story? You have to dig deep enough to tell it in a way that nobody else can tell it. And the way that you do that is by adding incredible detail. So in your packets, it's time for you to read homework. You've got 2 examples in here. The first one without detail, the second one with detail. I want you guys to read at least the first one, and then I want to talk for a second about the difference in the experience reading those. I'm going to chug water so that I don't die. I'll be back with you guys in a sec. Okay, are we ready to talk about these? It's much cooler on this side of the stage, I'll let you guys know. It's much cooler over here. Okay, so first version without detail, second version with detail. What was the difference as the reader reading those 2 different versions? I'm like your English teacher, I'll wait. You can picture it in your brain better. What else? Yeah, so without detail, it's pretty boring. Yeah, frankly, absolutely. And the one with detail, more sentimental, more relatable. Yeah. The one with detail was present tense, you're inside the story. Those are all absolutely true. When I was reading admissions essays, and this was obviously in the paper age, this is before everything, they're reading online now, but it's the same version. I would have a stack of applications on my desk in the morning. And I would be in charge of reading those applications and getting through them by the end of the day. And the stack never gets any smaller. Read 10 applications and the stack is just as tall as when you walked in first thing in the morning. And when you're reading thousands of essays, it's really easy for them to kind of bleed together. And what happens with the great essays is what you guys pointed out. It becomes something that you can picture, that you can relate to. You relate to something in yourself. So I think great essays are ones that start to play like a film in my brain. Happens with a great book sometimes too, where you start watching it. It's why you got mad when they cast the Harry Potter characters. Okay, you guys aren't boring yet, but it's why you get mad when they cast the characters of a book you love, because you've already pictured them. You're like, no, that's not who was in my brain. But that's what happens in the essay. So this one about the violin, she's talking about her dad with the camera in the front row. So as soon as I start reading this, think of my dad. When I was a kid, my dad had a camcorder. Video cameras used to not be in your phones. They used to be humongous cinder blocks that you would carry around. And my dad would turn it off and on at the wrong time, and so there's like hours of footage of us walking through the San Diego Zoo, just like the ground, and then not recording of the important stuff. But I remember that, and so I'm immediately connected to this kid, and I'm rooting for her. I'm on board, I'm supported. And what happens then is your admissions officer pictures you. They start to understand who you are, and they're invested in you. Now I have the kid I can picture walking across the quad to class, right? The more that they can get invested in your story, the more that they're invested in you. And the more that they want to go into that admissions committee meeting and fight for you. We used to sit around a big conference table, have you guys seen Legally Blonde? Okay, so you know all that big conference table with all the old dudes. One has a monocle, they have like elbow patches. But they're sitting around the table having this admissions committee deciding who they're going to admit. It's that exact same conversation, and you go in as the admissions officer and are fighting for the students you want to admit. It is much easier to fight for those kids that you can picture. And so when you can tell a story in a way that makes it yours, that nobody else can tell it, you get to be that kid. So the way to do it is to dig down and give as much detail as you can. That's how we differentiate you from the other 300 kids or 200 kids or 10 kids that have been doing exactly the same thing as you. There's a student that I worked with a few years ago who went on a mission trip, and he goes to a high school where every kid goes on a mission trip junior year. And they go to Mexico. I forget where they go, but they all get in a bus and they ride down and they spend a week working in schools and an orphanage and doing this work that for pretty much every kid is really impactful. And he came back and we sat down and had his essay brainstorming meeting. I said, "What do you want to write about?" And he said, "I want to write about my trip." I was like, "Great, what do you want to say?" He's like, "Well, we got on a bus and it was such a long ride, and then we got there and it was really hot. We worked with these kids for 5 days and it was so great, and we got on the bus and we came back." All that stuff is true. It's also the exact same thing everybody else would say about that trip. But he really wanted to write about it, and so I kept asking questions. Sometimes essay brainstorming feels a little bit like interrogation, but I kept asking questions. Tell me more. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And what we got to was the last day of the trip. The kids kind of got divvied up and everybody had a different job. And his job ended up being, he was in charge of painting one side of this building, I think the schoolhouse that they were working on, with a group of kids. And he was like Spanish 2 Spanish, you know, like not real great. And the students are speaking English, this little kids that he's working with. And so they're asking him, can I paint this? Can I paint this? Can I paint this? An octopus, a skyscraper, a giraffe, who knows? And he's like, sure, trying to organize these kids. And they end up with this very eclectic, but hand-drawn, like lovingly by these kids mural. And that's the story that he had to tell. He was the only kid, the only student with that group of kids painting that side of the building that day. So when you guys are telling a story, figure out what part of it is just yours. What part of it is an angle that only you can tell or only you can talk about. And you have to dig. Like, you have to interrogate yourself. If I'm not there, you have to interrogate yourself to dig into those details. And if you get to a point in that story where you don't feel like you have enough details to own it, I think you have to reconsider whether that's actually the right story to tell. Because what you don't want it to sound like is every other kid who plays soccer. We wear shin guards, we have to run so far, and the ball is flying around, offsides. You want to sound like yourself, not like every other kid. Want you to be memorable, okay? Does this sound doable so far? Does this feel manageable? Is everyone like going to go home and start writing their essay tonight? Okay, less enthusiastic response to the second question. Okay. You guys honestly are too young for this. I don't care. I love this slide so much. I'll keep it forever. When you guys are here with your kids, you'll see this slide. So don't repeat information from the rest of your application. This feels hard. How many of you guys have seen the Common App or the UC application yet? And how many of you feel like you told them every single thing that happened in your whole life since the day you were born in that application? It's a lot of stuff that they're asking. Every activity you've done all through high school. By the time they read your application, here's what they have in front of them. Your application, which is everything about you, all your demographic information, your parents. Did they go to school? Where did they go to school? Your siblings. How are they annoying and they're younger, or where did they already go to college? What classes are you taking? Tell us about your high school. Tell us about everything you've done in high school. How many hours a week? How many weeks a year? Are you going to keep doing it in college? They have your transcript. They know what classes you took. They know what grades you got in those classes. They know that one semester that was a little rough. They've seen your test scores. They've seen your recommendation letters. All of these things. So what's left? I'm like, don't tell them about anything that's in the application. What's left? So the way to do this is one of two things. One, you actually have something that hasn't fit into the application in another area. This is actually pretty rare. Most of you guys, your lives fit into the boxes that they have put in this application. Sometimes it doesn't feel like you do, but generally, your lives fit into those boxes. The other way to tackle this is to give them new and different information than what they already knew. So I was talking about, soccer. There are some assumptions I can make if you play soccer. Shin guards, offsides. That's football? Soccer, okay. Whew. It's a wonder my fantasy football team is losing. It's so crazy. There are some assumptions I can make, right? There's a goalie, the ball's black and white, it's going back and forth. I know these things. But what can you tell me that I don't already know? What story can I learn about that hasn't fit in your application? And how many of you guys have tackled the activity section of the Common App or the UC application? And how many of you were like, excuse me, how am I supposed to fit all this in 100 characters? Yeah. The activities descriptions for these applications are tiny. One of my students last week wrote 150 words. and it actually has 150 characters. So instead of a paragraph, it's a tweet. It's half a tweet now, because tweets are long. So it's not a lot of space. So what you have to think about is, what have I included in here, and what else can I tell them? What other information can I give them about this activity that they're not going to know? So a lot of my students, for example, have done special camp. Has anybody volunteered at special camp? Wow, you guys. We gotta get them on campus, okay? Gotta get you guys involved. So special camp, I think a lot of my students have done. I have an idea about what you're doing. You're working with a special needs student. You're working with them on this weekend. It's a great day. Kids generally love it. But what's the actual backstory? You guys who have played soccer for 10 years, it's easy to pick on soccer. It's the front of my brain all the time when I'm on a high school campus. But what things of this haven't I learned? So here's a student who I think did a great job with both of those topics. Played soccer for 4 years and probably AYSO for 10 years before that, and then special camp for all 4 years of high school. When I was 9, I tried out for my first club soccer team. Unfortunately, tryouts were on the same day as my piano competition. Right after the recital, I ran out of the building and into my dad's car. I was already late for tryouts, so I had to change in the car. On the way to the soccer field, I pulled on my shorts, shin guards, socks, and shoes. I was about to pull off my formal pink dress when I realized that my mom had packed 2 pairs of shorts, but no shirt. There was no time to turn back home. My dad sent me on the field with a go get him, and I headed across the field in that fluffy pink horror, complemented by shin guards and soccer cleats. Somehow I knew that the only thing worse than a 9-year-old girl trying out for the soccer team in a dress is a crying 9-year-old girl trying out for the soccer team in a dress. So I collected myself, walked up to the coach and said, "Sorry I'm late, I'm here to try out." Everyone laughed, including the coach, but it didn't matter what they thought. I made the team. 8 years later, I still remember learning not to care what other people think. My second year working at Special Olympics, I was assigned to be a buddy to a man named Robert. At first, I was a little disappointed that I wasn't matched with a little girl like I had been the previous year, but Robert's enthusiasm was contagious. An 8-year veteran of the Special Olympics, Robert knew exactly what he wanted to do, and hand in hand, we headed over to the Frisbee throw. Robert amazed me with his Frisbee skills, and every time he scored, I was right there for a big high five and an even bigger hug. Next was the obstacle course, and we had such a blast running through the tires together that we ran the course over and over. After we got our faces painted, we remembered that his event was coming up, the one he had been training for all year. Robert told me how nervous he was. In the 8 years he had been a participant, he had never won a gold medal, and he desperately wanted to win it this time. When the announcer called men's 40 and up 50-yard dash, I sent Robert to his lane assignment and reminded him again how ready he was. Robert had made it clear to me that unlike many of the other buddies, I was not to run alongside him, but to let him do it on his own. Standing at the finish line, cheering as loudly as I could, I watched Robert cross it first. He hugged me so hard that I nearly fell over. I grabbed his arm and said, "Come on, let's go get your gold medal." But I was leading him only for a second before he was dragging me. So this is a kid, I know these basic things about you. Oh no, you're doing so good there for a while. I know these basic things about you, but what she does with these stories is give me all kinds of backstory and color commentary, things I wouldn't have known. So when you think about that application, what is already included in there? What don't I actually know about you? What will fit is that you played varsity soccer for 2 years, JV for 1, frosh soft for 1, and you guys made all league junior year. But what actually happened? This is the same way that I talk about a letter recommendation in relation to your transcript. Your transcript shows me the class and the grade, straightforward, it's really cut and dry. But your recommendation letter is the story behind that grade. Your essay can be that same thing for your activities. So have you guys heard people talk about topics that are off limits for essays? Like you can't write about whatever, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, right? Like what's one you've heard of? The blood drive. Okay, to be fair, the blood drive essay is a joke that we make. People, because people are like, I donated blood and I helped all these others. It was so great. I'm like, well, what's the actual story? So there are, people do say, here are the cliched essay topics you can't use, which we're gonna get into, but I don't think anything is actually off limits. So we talk about don't repeat information. You can talk about anything in your application, but I have to learn something new. So if your essay is a recap of your activities, if it's a long explanation of your resume or your activity summary, it's not doing the job. A lot of times, this is when I'll tease dads again, so sorry guys. Dads are like, we gotta treat this like a cover letter. We gotta tell them the skills that you have that are a match for this job, right? We gotta tell them why you're a great fit, why they should hire you. That's not what they're doing here. Tell me the backstory so that I can learn about you and decide whether or not I like you. This is the kid who I wanna hang out with. Soccer tryouts in a dress when you're 9? She's like the boldest kid I've ever met. She's afraid of nothing. She's probably immortal. I want to hang out with her. That's what I want people to feel like after they read your essay. I want to hang out with this kid. Okay? So own your story. Details, details, details. If you can't dig in and find them, it's a no-go. Okay? Okay. Whew, your essay needs to sound like you. Tip number 4. Write this down in all caps, you guys. Underline it, 3 exclamation points. You guys seen The Princess Bride? Yeah, okay, phew. I know it'll never go out of style. I just want to make sure you guys are cool. So in the college essay, this is where you go, oh no, I'm not smart enough. Colleges are going to figure this out. I need to sound smarter. So I'm going to fancy it up a little bit. Stop right there. Don't do it. You guys have 2 beautiful examples in your packet. Actual first paragraphs of an essay. Before talking to your college counselor about it in essay brainstorming, and after. The first version, I like to read this dramatically. Throughout our lives, we are often forced to confront challenges. Oftentimes, we are able to learn the most valuable lessons from challenges that we successfully overcome. I found this to be the case when I chose to enroll in AP Chemistry my junior year. In spite of my best efforts, I consistently struggled with chemistry. My natural strengths were English and history. True for me also. But I persevered, and I'm very thankful that I did, as I successfully completed the course. I can't even finish it, and prove to myself that I can finish what I start. Oh my God, you guys. That's an essay to your parents about why they shouldn't ground you even though you got a bad grade in chemistry. Who talks like that? Raise your hand if you talk like that. Admit it right now. If you walk up to your friends and you say, throughout our lives, we're often forced to confront challenges, raise your hand. None of you talk like that. If you write this in your essay, I will come to your house and delete it myself. I roughly have a sense of where you all live just based on where we are. I will come to your house. This is not better. It's not. So, okay, I told you guys that when I was in admissions, I spent 3 months on the road visiting high schools. 4 or 5 high schools a day. So when you see a college here, know that they're gonna see 4 other high schools today. That's how hardcore they are. In terrible rental cars, without, the windows not electric, gotta crank that thing down. This was also, I was doing this work before Google Maps, so I was really suffering in some big ways. But I'm spending all of my days talking to 17-year-olds. Parents are like, why? Admissions officers like 17-year-olds. They think you guys are funny and cool. They're excited to see what you do next. This is a very cool time to work with teenagers because you guys are figuring out there's a whole big world out there. They want to hear from you. They want to hear your voice. So when you worry about this, when you worry about sounding like you or not mature enough or not put together enough or not smart enough, what happens is you put on your dad's oversized jacket again. And then you sound like somebody that you're not actually. So I want this to sound like you, but let's be a little bit more specific. I don't want this to sound like what you write in Snapchat to your friends or how you tweet or just the letter U for the word you. You need to write all 3 letters, you guys. All 3 letters. This should not be necessarily how you talk to your best friends when you're hanging out, but think of a teacher you really like or your counselor, somebody you have a good relationship who is a polished version of yourself. Still sounds like you, still walks and talks like you, but you'd still talk to your grandma. That version. So when you sit down to start writing these essays, the ideal situation is that if you handed a copy of this essay to your best friend goes, oh my God, I can totally hear you reading this to me. I can hear your voice in my head. That's the perfect version of this essay. That's how it sounds like you. Now what happens, this gets really messy when 1, you're trying to sound fancy, really smart. 2, you have too much feedback and input, and people are putting things in or giving you language that doesn't sound like you. If you quote Shakespeare to your friends, quote Shakespeare in your essay, absolutely. If you do not quote Shakespeare to your friends, do not put it in your essay. Other words I know you don't use, therefore, you don't use it. Plethora, you don't use it. Myriad, you don't even know how to use it. Admissions officers have also learned how to right-click thesaurus. We know how to find bigger words. So when you guys do that, it also changes the language that you use. It doesn't sound like the way that you talk. So if you're not sure, if you're working your essay and you're not sure, does this sound like me? Is this language right? Read it out loud. You're gonna sound like a crazy person in your room, just chattering away to nobody. But read it out loud to yourself. And if you stumble over the language, if it feels awkward, it will read awkwardly. I know it sounds crazy that admissions officers can hear your voice in their heads when they do this, but they can. That's what happens when you read 100 million essays all the time. But that means it becomes that much more important for you guys to figure out which part of this voice is actually yours. The second version of this chemistry essay, in the middle of my junior year, chemistry and I were having irreconcilable differences. The divorce was gonna get ugly, really ugly. I don't know why, but no matter how many days I spent after school, my teacher, Mr. Chapman, patiently tried to help me. I just couldn't get it. In fact, after finishing the class, pretty much the only thing I'm sure about when it comes to chemistry is that I could never be a chemist. Believe me, that's good news for the scientific community. It's like a normal kid, who I like, who has a little bit of a sense of humor. The other thing that happens, the difference that happens between those first two, is there's different level of detail. So in the second one, I know Mr. Chapman is the person who was helping. I knew that you were in there every day after class trying to work it out, right? It's already a story that I get to connect with more. You feel like a teenager, you feel more relatable, and you're not trying to be impressive. Guess what? I'm bad at chemistry. I will sing it from the mountaintops. I will sing this about me from the mountaintops. That's okay. But we want to tell that story in a way that it sounds authentic and sounds like you. I can't go in and root for a kid who I don't feel like I know. And I only get to know you if in this essay you are authentic and telling me something that is true and real about you. Fair? Sound like you, but not the text version. The writing and email version. Sometimes when my students get stuck and they don't know how to word something or they can't, I think sometimes when you're thinking about an essay, you don't know how to not make it sound more dramatic. Like your brain is just going, talks in only fancy words, like you don't know how to talk normal anymore. And so what I do with my students is I flip my computer monitor around. For you guys, if you're working at home, close your laptop. What are you trying to say? Say it out loud to whoever. To nobody, to yourself, to a friend sitting across from you. Just forget the essay, just explain it to me. Then write that down. When you're just explaining it, when you're just telling the story, that version is always better. So if you feel like you're stuck, just talk it. Oh my God, you guys, this is so embarrassing. Talk it out. I know, I'm sorry. But I think that's true. I think that's how you get to the actual version of what you're trying to say. I'm sorry I just gave you after school special advice. Talk it out. But I think it's true. And I think it will help with this essay when you sit down. I want to spend a second talking about cliches, which we mentioned. And kind of those off-limits essay topics and the things you're not supposed to write about. I don't remember if I have a slide for these. Let's find out. Nope. Do wait for the Beyonce slide, we're not there yet. Okay, so the first overused essay topic. Sports taught me the importance of teamwork and committing to my goals. Okay, how many of you guys, that's how I feel, that's my true feeling, that was authentic. How many of you guys play sports or are on a team of some kind? A lot of you, Los Al, good job, Griffin. Raise your hands up high, keep them up, I'm gonna stay in the air. Okay, good job. So please keep your hand up if you've ever left practice or rehearsal and said, wow, today I learned teamwork, perseverance, and dedication. So weird, all your hands went down, that's so weird. Because that's not how you talk about your experiences. I played volleyball in high school, because I'm tall, not because I was good at it. And I wouldn't have made the team here, I can accept that, that's fine. But the reasons I loved volleyball, now later, I'm 30 years old, and I can absolutely say that now, like teamwork, leadership, all those things were absolutely part of it. But what did I care about in high school? We got to play whatever music we wanted in the gym. Ashanti and Ja Rule, absolutely. We had sweet warm-ups. Sweet warm-ups. They were not, in hindsight, they were not, but we thought they were great. And my friends were all there. That's what I loved about volleyball. That is okay. You guys have to look at this from your 17-year-old perspective. When your parents are talking about the sports you play, they're like, yeah, she's absolutely learning teamwork and dedication, all of these things. You're learning that from a part-time job or from whatever. But that's not the experience you're having. That's you adding a life lesson because you think it sounds important, right? So if you take that part away, you get to talk about sports. You get to talk about all that stuff, but talk about the actual experiences that you're having. And if you say teamwork, leadership, and dedication, again, I will come to your house and delete it. The second one, my trip to another country broadened my horizons. Can I tell you guys how many times I've read things like, in France, it's so crazy, everybody speaks French and they like eat cheese. So if you had to go to France to learn that people speak French, I have much bigger concerns about you. A lot of times students are like, I want them to know I'm really worldly and like really broadly minded, and so I'm gonna write a Wikipedia entry about my trip to France. Here are all the facts you need to. France is a country of this many people, and here's the national flower and whatever. No, what actually happened to you? I had a student a couple years ago who went on a summer trip to Spain. He had family in Spain, like cousins he had never met who are similar in age, and his parents were like, we'll send you for a few weeks, go have fun, enjoy your family, like, you know, get a sense of your culture and your history and all this stuff. And he went, he had an amazing time, and he came back and we're sitting down talking about this, and he said, I think I want to write about my trip to Spain. And his mom's like, yeah, you learned about your history and your family and your culture, and like you're connected to your history in all these different ways. And he kind of looked funny, and I was like, well, what did you want to talk about? Like, what was your biggest thing in Spain? He learned to dance in Spain. When you're 16 in Spain, you can go to a discotheque. It's like, okay, everybody be cool. It's like a thing you can do, right? And he had never danced at the high school dances. He's this guy. You know, this is a wall right here. I'm leaning on a wall. That guy. He's never danced at a high school dance. And he goes to Spain, and he's hanging out with his cousins, and they go out every night, and he doesn't really dance most of the trip. And towards the end of the trip, he's like, okay, I've seen these people once in 18 years. When am I going to see them again? I might as well. And he lets loose and he dances, and he has the most fun ever for the last 2 nights of his trip. That was the story he wanted to tell about his trip to Spain. When he's 30 years old, he will also talk about learning about his culture and history and being in this totally different environment. But right now you're 17. Your 17-year-old perspective is that I danced. We're not inflecting a huge life lesson. On the admission side, I'm like, this is a kid who's willing to take a risk and doesn't take himself too seriously. This is a kid who will try new things in college. He's going to take advantage of all the things that are happening here. Please just don't write that you didn't know people spoke another language. Community service taught me the importance of helping people. Sometimes I'm like, this one's the worst. No, this one's the worst. They're all the worst. Community service taught me the importance of helping people. So, do you know what my issue is with this? Did you not know that it was good to help people before you did community service junior year? Did you have no idea? No clue, huh? Okay. That's when people go, I am a good person. Look at it here, I got the letter signed. 10 hours, I'm a good person. No, what's the actual thing that you did? What do you care about? I am not, I'll be totally honest with you guys, I am not somebody who was motivated by community service in high school. I had a part-time job where I got free frozen yogurt, hello, and I told you about volleyball, obviously that was the business. My community service didn't do anything for me. My friends weren't there, couldn't DJ the whole thing myself, I didn't get paid, what are we even doing? So it wasn't my thing. That's okay. If it is not your thing, that's fine. But let's not inject a life lesson. Here's what else students do. My volunteering at the elementary school changed my life. I'm like, wow. Wow, let me flip back to that activity summary. Oh, you did it for 4 hours in 9th grade, huh? And then never again. Wow, really life-changing. So you didn't even go back to see if those kids were still there. Hello. You got to think about this stuff before you try to add a big dramatic layer. And the last one is also the worst. I hate all these so much. The last one is my leadership position proves I can work well with others. Why do I hate this one? Didn't you not learn how to work well with others in preschool? Like you had to get elected to ASB secretary to learn how to interact with other human beings? No. What did you actually like about that? I love making posters. If I don't come home with markers all over my fingers, the day has been a waste. What's the part you're stoked about? We don't have to inject something that doesn't actually exist there. All of these topics are okay, but what's the actual story that you want to tell? Have I traumatized you guys out of all the stories you thought you were going to write? Sorry, okay, good. I just want to make sure there's no lingering bad ideas before I leave you. Question? Tell me. Unless it's a math question, then I don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. This is a great question. Okay, so with the activity section, there is very little space. You get 50 characters in the top section and 100 characters in the bottom. Which, by the way, you guys don't have to they say, whatever the sections are titled, you don't have to only do that. Just make it fit in a way that makes sense. But the question is, should you do the same thing with your essay, same thing with your activities that you do with your essay? To some extent, yes. It's really hard to do all of these things in 150 characters, but if you can show that you're not just a cog on whatever thing you're talking about, Like, sure, you guys went to Ollie or whatever, but what was the thing that was important to you? Like, what's the thing that you want them to remember? Yeah, if there was something that you did in that club, then don't spend the time writing the club description, like international club, we, whatever, whatever. Here's what I did. Absolutely. Totally. And I will hang out for questions. I anticipate you guys won't have any because I'm so brilliant and thorough, but I will hang out and we'll have time for questions at the end too. Okay, parents. Parents, did you make your kids take notes if you have a kid here? Did you make your kids take notes? Those of you guys who don't have a kid are bummed that you didn't have a note taker with you. I'm so sorry. Parents, this process is stressful. Have you wanted to, you don't have to raise your hands, but just like blink at me rapidly. Have you wanted to either ground forever or give away your senior at any point during this application process? Just blink at me so I know, yeah? Okay. This process is stressful. It is stressful. And we have these 17-year-olds who just learned how to drive and can't vote yet, who are like making these big moves for their futures. And I think for parents, you guys are watching this project, this kid. I have a 5.5-year-old, so I know exactly how you guys are feeling. You're watching this kid you have watched grow up from a kid, now leaping into adulthood in this insane way. And you want to make sure they don't screw it up, which is absolutely the right thing. You're already doing the right thing by being here. They've got great support around them at school. Like, we're already on the right track. I think the essay is sometimes where parents hurt more than they help with all the best intentions. And here's where your fault is with your kids around the essay is you love them too much. You do. You hung up all their terrible kindergarten artwork. I'm doing the same thing. Hanging it up on the fridge. This doesn't even look like a butterfly. I will hang it right up. You love your kids too much. And so when you read an essay that they've written, yes, you're proud of them, and yes, they did a great job, and also you're seeing all the other wonderful things about them that didn't get included. I had a mom once go, but she got perfect attendance all through elementary school, which is great, but like not critical information for the college essay. And I also think, and here's where I'll point the finger at kids, your parents sometimes get over involved because you're not either doing anything, or parents were like, yeah, tell them. Or, okay, everyone's gonna leave friends, this will be fine. Or you're not communicating to them. Parents, how many of your students come home and you're like, how was school today? And they're like, fine. What'd you do? Nothing. Turns out Ms. Hutchinson was in first period telling them all about the college MiniSeries, giving them a schedule for 50 things that are happening. So students, your parents sometimes get hyper involved because they're worried, because it doesn't appear that you're doing anything. And so my advice to parents is to stay 50 yards or 15, if that's all you can manage, away from the essay. Because I think whatever feedback you have sounds to your kids often like shrieking. Even if you're like, I think this is great. One thing I was wondering, no, it's immediately shrieking. They can't hear it. And it's also really hard for you to step back. And so students, I want you to get thoughtful feedback about your essay. But I want your parents to get to read it at the end. For you to get to go, I finished my essay, I'm so proud, I want you to get to read it. But that means you have to, one, spend time working on it. Don't leave it until the last minute, okay? All of you are hearing me right now on the record. Is this being videotaped? On the record. You can't wait until the last minute. And you have to get thoughtful feedback and advice. Your parents cannot be objective here. They love you too much. Sometimes you're like, do they? I'm grounded again. But they do. So who can give you thoughtful feedback and advice? Your English teacher a lot of times. Your counselors. You guys have a great counseling staff here. They put on how many, like 50,000 college mini-series events for you guys to come learn about what's happening in this process. Everyone come to financial aid night, even if you don't think you need to. I'm not supposed to be plugging other events, but I do think it's very important. Financial aid can be very stressful. You've got great resources around you with your teachers, with your counselors. A former teacher who you know and trust. An older sibling occasionally who doesn't want you to write your essay just like theirs, the one that got them into college. That can be a little bit tricky. People like me exist to help kids navigate the essay. So you need to get thoughtful feedback, but you need to get it from the right places. You also need to get it from people who understand college admissions, which is why I think older siblings aren't a great resource, because they weren't in the committee room when they were admitted. They just know they got in, they don't know how or why. And so talking to somebody who actually understands the admissions process can be super valuable. And when you take charge of your essay and you take good care of it, and you don't write it at the last minute, your parents get to calm down and let you be in charge of it. Teenagers, how many of you guys have been like, just let me do it this week? Okay, thank you for those of you who raised your hands and admitted that publicly. That was great. Then you have to actually do it. They want to let you be in charge of this. So parents, I'm giving you permission to release this. Jesus, take the wheel. Kids, take the wheel, please, okay? But get good advice from people who you know and trust. Oh, we're almost there, you guys. Home stretch, you're doing great. Okay, our tips we talked through. Don't try to impress them. You sound fake and awkward, which is not a good look. You guys all have great stories to tell. So tell stories that are important to you and that you care about. Own your story. Details, details, details. If you need to, say to yourself, tell me more, and then tell yourself more. Until you have enough to share that other people couldn't tell that essay, couldn't tell that story in the same way. Don't repeat information. We talked about this. You just have to do it in a thoughtful way. New and different information. Like when they present a new case in Law and Order, but to appeal with new information. And the fourth one, sound like you. No plethora, no myriad, no therefore, no heretofore, no, as the great Gandhi said, none of that. Because it's not how you talk. Oh, God. If one of you writes teamwork, leadership, and dedication, I'll die. I'll die of a coughing fit. You guys all have the ability to write a great essay. It has nothing to do with how much you like English or being a great writer. I have so many students who come to my office and they're like, I'm a terrible writer. I hate writing. I can't do it. Yeah, you can. One, because you have a story to tell. And two, you've never written like this before. You've never even tried. And so when you relax a little bit, like bring your shoulders down 2 inches from where they are when you initially sat down to write this, don't unbutton the first button so you're not choking with the weight of feeling like your whole future rides on this essay. It doesn't. It's just an essay. But it's a place where you get to talk directly to colleges, and I think it is super important. Too many kids let this waste away by writing an essay that sounds like other students, by writing a McEssay, by writing an essay that they go, oh no, I know Allison said this, but I really got to have a life lesson in here. Please don't. Maybe there is one, but maybe there's not. And don't write a dramatic essay about making something dramatic that isn't, okay? My cat died when I was 11. It was really traumatic. I read that essay too. I'm giving it to you as a real example of things I don't want you to do. Okay, so we've talked about this. You don't have to go home and start right now. I recognize that you guys have homework. Some of you have been in practice and rehearsal and came straight here and haven't even had dinner yet. I'm sorry, I know you're hungry. There's probably something great on television tonight that you're missing. So you don't have to start tonight, but please do not wait. When are your early action applications due? Do you know? November 1st or 15th. When is the UC application due? November 30th. If you are writing UC essays over Thanksgiving break, I will not forgive you. I was like, I'll be home Thanksgiving. I'm not going to come to your house. But you don't need to be doing that. You have weekends now. I know you guys are busy. I know you are. You have a ton of homework, and everybody's thing that they need from you is the most important thing. But carve out a little time and chip away. Write a draft on a Saturday morning and then step away from it for a week and come back over the weekend. Use your planners that you carry around and don't write anything in to block out some time so you're able to do this. Use the resources that are around you. Like I said, you guys have a great team on campus that are offered Tuesday, Thursdays in the College Counseling Center. Can come look at your essay. You can come in every Tuesday when you draft your essay. Maybe not every Tuesday, but a few Tuesdays. Get some feedback. Use what is there. Ask for feedback thoughtfully. Too many cooks in the kitchen is a real thing here. The more feedback you get, the more voices you're trying to incorporate in an essay that is supposed to be your voice. And what happens is it starts to ebb away and sounds like a stew of a bunch of other people trying to get their voices in there. That's also how, I was talking about parents staying out of the essay earlier. That is how I often figured out that parents were too involved in the essay. Because I can hear other voices in there that don't sound like the kid. And in reading applications for admission, there were students who could have been admitted and weren't because their essays didn't sound like them. So feedback thoughtfully. You took great notes tonight, right? Yes, absolutely, we did. If you didn't get a flyer and you need one, I'm gonna send some to Ms. Hutchinson so the counseling office has them. If you are interested in more help around the admissions process. We do a free monthly newsletter that is good advice and not annoying. Last month I forwarded to my mom, it was so good. You can check the little box in the yellow paper that you got at the front door and leave me your information. I can do that if you want to come to other events like this that we're doing, or meet with a counselor. You can check those boxes too. You guys have a huge opportunity here. Please take advantage of it. Please do not waste time. Please do not wait until the last minute. You've got great options that are going to be on the horizon. I want them to get to hear from you and be excited about what you have to say, okay? I'm going to hang out for folks who have questions, but for those of you guys who need to go, feel free to bounce. If you filled out that yellow paper, you can just leave it here or there, just somewhere where I can see it. Thank you guys. Have a fabulous night. I'll hang out for folks who have questions. Great job, nailed it.